An cóide trí céisteanna faoi clár an rialtas agus an seanad an Garda Síochána agus drugs payment scheme. And just listening to the Taoiseach waxing lyrically, the programme for government, in a wonderful understatement, acknowledges that significant reform of the seanad itself is long overdue. And it goes on to say that the government will pursue the implementation of the Manning report as a priority. Now, in the light of the secret deal done between yourself and Seachta Martin, to give Seachta Martin the right to nominate 3 people to the seanad, how seriously should we take that commitment to seanad reform? I mean, what happened to the government's commitment to openness, to transparency, or for that matter, Fianna Fáil's commitment to new politics? So is this the extent of the reform of the seanad? On 12 occasions, reports have been proposed on seanad reform. Not one has been implemented. We are proposing the establishment of a committee on seanad reform to report within weeks. Will the government's new seanadóirí support this proposal? On the issue of an Garda Síochána, Cion Comhairle, the programme for government commits the government to support the new independent policing authority. And Sinn Féin is very critical of the decision by the government to only provide the policing authority with responsibility for nominating persons for the posts of Garda Commissioner and Deputy Garda Commissioner. The government has retained, despite our efforts to get it to do it the way Patton did it, the government has retained the power to make these appointments, and that is unacceptable. However, my concern today is that last Tuesday, the Cabinet appointed 4 of the 8 vacant Assistant Garda Commissioners. And under the legislation establishing the policing authority, this was to be its responsibility, and it was to take up this responsibility, I understand, in July. So why did the Cabinet completely, at this time of controversy and difficulties, why did the Cabinet completely undermine the role of the new policing authority in appointing these Assistant Garda Commissioners 1 month before the legislation is due to come into effect? And what of the other 4 unfulfilled positions and the up to 20 senior Garda promotions that we understand are to be announced shortly? Is the government going to make these appointments also, or do you not accept that these Cabinet decisions undermine the role and the function of the police authority and the commitment to it that the programme for government contains? And then finally, a constituent of mine contacted me last week to express her concern once again at the failure of the HSE to agree the availability of immunity therapy treatments for cancer patients, specifically Opdivo and Yervoy. And this woman has been involved in a clinical trial since 2013. She's now in remission, and her story is a good story. But other cancer patients are not receiving these drugs or the new drug Pembro, which one oncologist described as game-changing. It's been hailed, along with the other immune therapy treatments, as a replacement for chemotherapy and with significantly better incomes for patients. It's also said to be cost-effective for the state. And delaying this decision will cost lives. So will you instruct the Minister of Health to clear away whatever obstacles there may be to immunotherapy treatments and the use of these drugs?
Thank you, Deputy
I think he's already done that. There's a very clear process here for determination of drugs of this nature. It's done through a clinical process. The meeting is tomorrow. The Minister will be informed and the Minister will report on that. Obviously, he's anxious to have an effective process, expedited in the patient's interest. The decisions are made clinically, not by politicians or not by government. In respect of the second matter that you raised there, yes, the government did make appointments last week, 4 assistant commissioners. Let me be very clear about this, Deputy Adams. The government did not change the recommendations or the order of recommendations made in respect of those nominees for positions that were vacant. The reason that they were appointed was because there were significant areas of the country that were not in the charge of any assistant commissioner. And it was felt appropriate that those appointments that had come through the process in the order in which they were nominated, that 4 of them would be put in position to deal with the fact that you had an escalating gangland situation where there were serious elements of crime to be dealt with and where there were significant parts of the country that were not under the direction or control of any Assistant Commissioner. The other appointments to be made, and the 20 or more senior appointments that must be made, will be made by the Independent Police Authority. Government will have no function in making those appointments, and that will apply. That will apply from now on for all those appointments. They'll be made completely by the Independent Police Authority. But it's just on the urgency of this situation and the fact that there were huge areas of the country without direction from an Assistant Commissioner, pressure on the entire system, that they were put in place. And as I confirm to you again, there was no change in the order or the recommendations that were made there. In respect to your first question, I would like to see the Manning report implemented in terms of the reform of the Seanad. We've had so many reports and commissions and work groups over the last 40 years looking at the Seanad. Okay? People decided they want the Seanad to remain, and remain it will. In my view, I'd like to see the new Seanad deal with the implementation of the Manning report. Perhaps it might not be able to be implemented in all its facets, but it is a report based on an objective, experienced analysis by people who served in the Seanad and who had no further personal interest or personal stake in it, other than to see how it might work effectively. In respect of your remark about Deputy Martin here, the position is that under the Constitution, the nominees of the Taoiseach refer specifically to the Taoiseach of the day. And I could have decided not to have anything to do with Deputy Martin in this regard. But I do think that nobody could object. I'll be straight with you. This is a partnership government. It's very different than having a majority government, because you're not in a position to do as you might like. And I did say, if you give me a couple of nominations for particular sectors, that I'd consider them. Can anybody object to the founder of Pieta House being able to give her that experience? Can anybody object to the chief executive of the Alzheimer's Foundation, or a business person adding to the range of what's in the Seanad? And that's the reason why. So these are important facets of understanding that we are in a very different political position than we've been before.
Thank you very much.
And attitudinal change is very important here. And I like to think that the appointments that are made will work in the broader interests of many issues. We're debating mental health here this evening. Mental health, which is of such importance to so many people, behind closed doors where the public might never know about it, and the tragic consequences in some cases, and all of that.
Thank you very much, Taoiseach. I am a little concerned that the order of business is developing into an alternative form of Taoiseach's questions, and I think we need to curtail both the length of the questions and the answers. Deputy Howley.